If someone calls you old school, it's typically not a compliment. It's more of a judgment. But I wanted to send this quick video because I'm seeing a trend in my practice with sales leaders where the old school folks are actually doing better than what I would characterize as new school. And when I mean old school, I mean practices from the late 90s, early to mid 2000s that worked and were widely adopted that have since been abandoned in the last 5 to 7 years. I'm going to share with you 3 things that old school sales leaders used to do and still do that separate them and give them a better chance of being consistent leaders year in and year out. The first thing is they do their own analysis. Now, I'm not being critical of sales ops and rev ops. I think it's a great role, and I think if you have the resources to do it, great. But here's what the difference that I want to point out. Old school sales leaders actually sit with the data, they do their own interpretation, and they look at it and manipulate it in multiple ways to make their own conclusions. They just don't take it at face value from the way RevOps presented it to them. And so if that's you, if you're not creating white space to sit with your data, maybe you need to be old school and sit down with it and look at it, and don't just take the assessments and the characterizations that you get from RevOps at face value. You know the data better than they do if you're doing your job correctly and actually getting out with customers and getting out with the reps. Which leads me to my second point. Old school sales leaders weren't just bombarded with messages in Slack and email. They actually got out of their office and they went and sold and they went and coached. They got in front of customers and they got in front of reps. So one old school practice that you can adopt is shut the computer down, get on the phone, talk to a rep, go see them in person, or get in a Zoom, get in whatever video conference that they're in, and just be with them. Help them sell. Your job is more, in fact, it's the only thing that you need to do is coach people and get customers. So if you're not doing that, if you're spending too much time in messages to other departments and to your team and not actually connecting with customers and people, be old school. And the third thing, and I think the most important, is they did their own hiring. And the reason this is relevant is we're all in the midst of a talent war. And when I say they did their own hiring, it doesn't mean they didn't work with recruiters or they didn't partner with HR, but they built their own hiring process and they were very involved in the interview process. And I'm seeing a lot of sales leaders today that have largely just distanced themselves from that altogether. And I think that's a mistake. They're relying too heavily on an HR department that has competing priorities and doesn't know what it takes to be successful in sales, or they're just putting it out to a recruiter that's just trying to get a fee and doesn't have any commitment or any accountability to when that person doesn't make it in 90 to 120 days. There is a talent war going on, and if you want to win the talent, be old school. So listen, sorry for the rant, but I think in today's modern world, we need a little bit more old school sales leaders. Go get them.